two cranes promised to carry a turtle to a palace high in the mountains. But as they flew, people began to insult the turtle. The turtle got angry and yelled back, but he opened his mouth and accidentally fell down to the rocks below. The point is, never drop your future to answer the wrong people. But here's the strange thing. Researchers state that 84% of life's regret comes from people that never take action. So the ones who regret most weren't the turtle who was punished for speaking out, but the ones who watched him thinking, hey, maybe I should have said something too. This is a very common form of regret in Asia, and let me give you an example of a man who never spoke out until the very end. One day a father decided to punish the eldest for disobedience. He ordered the youngest to go teach him a lesson, and the youngest ripped him in half. His father was terrified by his son's violence and quickly sent him away to go fight barbarians. And the thing was, his son succeeded. He returned home with the head of his enemies when all his father wanted was for him to die in battle. So he was sent off again to harder missions. He was trapped in the burning fields, slew a giant fish in the ocean, and now he's climbing the snowy mountains in search of a white boar. He survived all these missions and made a name for himself, but the more famous he got, the further away he was from home. And it was when he was furthest away, he grew sick, and not long after, he collapsed in the snow. That's when the white boar appeared and offered to help, but he refused, for he knew deep down in his heart, this is exactly what his father had wanted. That's why his last words were a bird. If I were to be born again, let me be born with wings. This is a story of Yamato Takeru, one of Japan's legendary heroes. He represents one of the core regrets many Asians have: filial piety, loyalty to one's family, even if it means endless suffering and death. That's why some of the best Asians wrestled if this was right or wrong and how to balance one's duty and happiness. This story is an example of some of their interesting solutions. It's called The Carpenter and the Shoe Tree. Long ago, a carpenter planted some trees. One grew up to be beautiful, the other ugly. The carpenter looked at this massive, gnarled tree and said, by no means, this tree is useless. So he ignored it and chopped off the beautiful tree into tiny little pieces where he spent the rest of his life as useful furniture. The point is, sometimes you must master the art of being useless to the wrong demands. The shoe tree, unbothered by the carpenter, kept on growing. Eventually, it grew large enough to shade 1,000 oxen. Now here's another example of a person who found his value after becoming useless. Behold, a dragon of Asia. Dragons do not brush their teeth. They sit on their thrones and let their servants do it for them. But one day a revolution struck, a giant poster in the middle of the palace that says there is no such thing as dragons. The dragon was caged, and he had to hold a signpost that stated, I am not a dragon. And not too long after, he was sold to foreigners. He was moved to the furthest part of the country. They put him in front of a crowd and told him to breathe fire, but the dragon said, dragons do not breathe fire. Servants do. So they replaced him with a paper dragon, and since they no longer needed him, they chased him away. He walked into the mountains, humiliated, depressed, and wanted it all to end. So he laid on the grass and hoped he could sleep forever. But if you know anything about people at rock bottom, they tend to get very hungry. His stomach growled, and soon after, he sluggishly stood up and went looking for food. He saw a duck and waited for that duck to come to him. But as the duck ignored him, he tried to punish him by breathing fire. A young boy saw this, stared at this strange dragon, and asked, what are you doing? The dragon explained, and the boy laughed. Humans can't breathe fire. Only dragons can, the boy said. Then he ran off. That's when the dragon had a realization. He tried plucking a scale off his body and learned that he in fact was a man. His servants had framed him a dragon his entire life, not for the dragon's sake, but because they needed his authority. The man immediately took off all his scales and found a job at the garden, where he found happiness in being himself. His name is Puyi, the last emperor of China, who reported, "I used to be a sadistic and useless ruler, but now I am happy, being a productive member of society." Buddha once said that all we have is the result of what we have thought, and our thoughts are carefully curated by the people around us. Parents tend to mold their children so they have a successful son or an obedient daughter, but end up making machine hearts and machine minds. Which is why we must compete to mold ourselves. As a famous psychologist once said, take authorship of your life and be the one to write your story. The bonus content of today is going to be about hotel maids. They divided maids in two groups. One was offered data and facts that their work was exercise, the other were uninformed. 4 weeks later, the group of maids who knew their work was exercise lost more weight, had better blood pressure, even though they did the same work as the uninformed. The point is, if you add meaning to your work, whatever it is, you can win more out of it. Thank you very much for watching till the end. I pray for your success and happiness, and I'll see you guys next time.